Well, here we are. He's still dominating the news this morning. Prince Harry remains on the front pages as a new poll reveals his popularity has fallen, with just a quarter of Brits now holding a positive view about the Prince. Well, yesterday he appeared on Good Morning America. We'll have more on that a little bit later. But of course, today, the book finally hits the shelves. And joining me now, GMB's Richard Gaisford. He's in a bookshop in Windsor. Richard, is there much of a queue? Is there a buzz? Is there excitement? What's happening?
Simply no queue, I have to say, Lorraine. There is no real rush here for spare in Royal Windsor. We're outside the walls of the castle. The royal household could pop across if they wanted to pick up a copy. The doors have been open here since 7 o'clock this morning, and they have just sold their third copy. 219 of them were sent to the shop here for sale. The expectation is, of course, that a lot will go today. Now, overnight, though, there have been some special events at bookshops around the country at midnight as the book officially went on sale. There was some clamour for it, I'd say, amongst those people desperate to get their hands on an early copy at Euston Station this morning. Here in this bookshop, you can see it's already placed at #1, and certainly the pre-orders for the book went up as some of those stories started to leak through over the last few days. Now it's time to get into the book itself, and I have to say, Lorraine, I find it to be really sad, actually. You get so much in this book of Prince Harry's reaction to his mother's death, all of the breakdowns of relationships within his family, and some really mundane stuff too. The fact that he goes shopping for bargains at a well-known discount store that can be found just up the road, that sort of thing. It is an interesting read, no doubt, for many, despite the fact a lot of us have got a good clue as to what's already in it. I wonder, Lorraine, I know you've had a look inside, what you made of it.
I read the whole thing, Richard, and I thought a very sensitive but rather damaged young man who, it's really interesting, you know what you were saying about all the mundane stuff. He seemed to absolutely relish, you know, going to the supermarket just to buy a pint of milk is like a big deal and very exciting. The obsession with the press, though, Richard, he let it rule his life, and I think that's really sad. I really do. I think he's got to let that go and just go and enjoy his life. But I really worth a read. Really, really worth a read. It's good to read it by yourself. But thank you for that. I hope he sells more than 3 copies this morning, because that's not great. But it's early days, early days. Thank you. Well, we've been asking online whether you will be buying Harry's book, and 15% of you said yes, you would. 85% of you said no, but I reckon that's probably because we've all been talking about it for so much. It's been in all the papers. You probably feel as if you've read it already. But it is very well written. The ghostwriter's done a great job. OK, joining me now, author Andrew Morton. Of course, you'll remember he wrote Princess Diana's biography in 1992. It was all in The Crown. We've just seen that. Andrew, good morning to you. It would seem, though, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because you wrote your book in secret. Obviously, you know, Diana was very much involved. You know, she did the tapes and everything. Our son has done it out on the open. Was it the right thing for him to do, do you think?
Well, in many respects, it's rebounded on him because, as you mentioned earlier, his popularity has plunged in Britain, not quite so much in America, but nonetheless, the endless Oprah interviews, the 6-hour documentaries, now the book. I think there's a degree of overkill about this young man.
Yeah, maybe there's a bit of Harry fatigue settling in, I guess. Running through it, though, the pain of losing his mother when he was so young, the way that he was told and left on his own, and he's just never got over it, has he? He just never has, no. And I don't know if he ever will.
No, I think the ghost of Diana hovers very strongly over this book, and he can't let the pain of Diana's death leave him, because he'd be left with nothing. So he clings on to that. And his hatred of the media is formed by the fact that he blames them for following Diana into the Alma Tunnel, when in fact it was nothing to do with the paparazzi who were around at the time. It was a drunk driver and drugged up driver driving too fast in a built-up area. And if Diana had been wearing a seatbelt, she'd be alive today. But these facts are ignored by Harry and, quite frankly, a lot of people as well.
It's understandable, though, that he feels like that. It's completely understandable, and because so much has been left open, you know, especially when you read the book and he talks about the fact that he was so happy in the army, so happy. It's like he found his place. You know, he's somebody that hasn't fitted in, and he fitted in the army. But then, when the media found out, and it wasn't the British media, it was an Australian publication, when they found out that he was in Afghanistan, they had to take him out for his safety and the safety of his men. And he was raging, but you can understand that, can't you?
Oh, absolutely, and he's got a lot to be angry about with regards to the media, notably when his and William's phones were tapped by a Sunday newspaper. So that's a matter of public record. It's really a sadness that he lets it all dominate his life. As you said earlier, he's not been able to move on, and he's brought that hostility to his relationship with Meghan. And you saw with his interview with Tom Bradbury that you know, there's an anger there, even though he says that he's never been happier.
Yeah, when you say the hostility brought it into, do you mean in the relationship, or do you mean that sort of makes her be hostile too? What do you mean?
The hostility that he feels towards the media and the media's treatment of Meghan is formed by his feelings about the media with regards to Diana's death, his mother's death. But that's predicated on a false assumption that was due to the paparazzi. It wasn't due to the paparazzi, it was due to a drunk driver. And if he was able to accept that, he might somehow end this endless crusade, this very expensive crusade that he's mounting against the mass media.
We could talk about that. I mean,
after all, what we're talking about is a family at war. We're not talking about the media at war. We're talking about a family at war.
No, very much so, very much so.
William
Although
Harry,
that car wouldn't have been going so fast if the paparazzi hadn't been following him.
Father and mother-in-law.
So, listen, the pettiness of royal life, I was quite surprised about, Andrew. You know, there's kind of like almost like a league table, like who does the most engagements, who gets a better press. He says the royals are frightened of the media. It is like the tail wagging the dog. Surely it shouldn't be like that. And that's maybe a role for him in the future, especially when it comes to online media, about reforming. I mean, he says he wants to do that.
I'm afraid the sound has gone on your side.
I thought it had because you were talking and I was talking. Listen, don't worry. We'll try and fix that. We'll try and fix that because there's so much we want to talk about, especially the long-term effect on the monarchy and all of that.